Following 15 years devoted to Tech Vantage, Marjorie Thompson let me know that my position was being restructured, her voice showing scarcely concealed enjoyment. She situated herself across from me within the small conference room, joined by Denise, who was representing HR staff, and both exhibited practiced appearances of corporate compassion. "The company is seeking an alternate major direction," Denise clarified, shoving a tan-colored file toward me. "Your efforts have been valued, yet we are combining the analysis division along with the product development team." I recognized this announcement with a tranquil inclination of my head, accepting the packet without studying what was inside. The packet certainly contained the usual termination package: 2 weeks payment for every year dedicated, health coverage continuing 3 months into the future, and a collection of job-seeking support operations I had no desire of employing. I completely grasped the circumstances, I answered, preserving a firm vocal quality. Decisions like these are consistently challenging. Instant comfort registered on their expressions. They had clearly expected outbursts of feeling, protests, or rage. Ultimately, they were terminating a woman aged 55 working in the technology industry, a field where being young was prioritized instead of experience gained. What they still failed to realize was how prepared I was for this moment over the recent period, especially after a misdirected email thread arrived in my electronic inbox the month before. "We need you to clear your possessions out before this week finishes," Marjorie continued, encouraged by my apparent agreement. "We must have your security pass, business laptop, and cellular phone returned when you leave. Your team members will be informed this very afternoon." My team comprised 6 brilliant technologists whom I had personally chosen and mentored through the years. These identical professionals had helped me develop the distributed data method that presently powers Tech Vantage's main product, AccountSphere, which is an accounting program used by over 40% of America's biggest businesses. "Absolutely," I asserted, rising from my chair. "Is there anything else you need?" They exchanged glances, plainly astonished by how composed I was. Marjorie replied first. "Our conversation is over. We admire the professional way you manage this topic." Heading toward my area, I went past the glass-walled conference room where the top executives were gathered. Past the translucent boundary, I noticed Chief Executive Officer Victor Lawson gesturing strongly at a display screen titled Financial Profit Projections. This was the very same Victor Lawson who took credit for my system during last year's industry event, referencing me only as one of our investigation staff. I locked my office entrance and found my own cellular phone, sending a quick written message. "The scenario is progressing. My last day is coming Friday." The answer arrived immediately. "Perfect synchronization. Paperwork is complete. Dinner this night to finalize agreements." I felt content while reviewing the calendar shown on my office surface. Today was currently Wednesday. Friday would signify my last time at Tech Vantage. And Monday suggested something fascinating. That identical night, I met with Gregory Sullivan at Meridian, a high-end eatery far away from Tech Vantage's corporate site. Since he was CEO of Precision Systems, Tech Vantage's main competitor, Greg recognized the necessity of discretion. He had secured a private eating area near the back, hidden from onlookers by elaborate Japanese screens. "They followed through with their objective," Greg mentioned, showing astonishment after we ordered our food. "I expected this outcome, yet firing the person who created their core innovation. Victor never understood what I truly built," I replied, drinking my beverage. "He understood the performance, the user viewpoint, the revenue opportunities, but the underlying framework that stayed purely engineering details for him." The event felt nearly too appropriate. 90 days earlier, I discovered that the intellectual property application for my distributed processing approach had never been sent in by Tech Vantage's law section. A paperwork mistake, they had insisted when I inquired. They had pledged quick fixing, but an element about their justification had seemed dubious, prompting me to look into the company's confidential files. That is where I discovered the evidence. A blueprint outlining designs to categorize the system as company-generated innovation without naming the specific creator. Their goal was to terminate me prior to securing the patent, knowing ownership rights developed by employees usually belong to the corporation. Tech Vantage was oblivious to my simultaneous effort on refining the system during my own hours, using my own resources. These improvements, which considerably boosted handling capacity by 43%, were not covered by my employment agreement. I had secretly applied for IP safeguarding using my own name the month prior, fully evidenced by timestamps and development reports that unequivocally proved the task was completed outside of company periods. The protection had been granted with unusual speed due to Greg's link to a prominent intellectual property attorney. "Every piece of paper is finished," Greg mentioned currently, pushing a file across to me. "After you sign, Precision Systems officially acquires sole licensing permission for your IP. The press statement comes out Monday early, introducing you as our next Chief Innovation Executive." I studied the paperwork carefully, even though I already remembered the primary provisions: $1 million starting sum, substantial equity in Precision Systems, and ongoing income from every product utilizing my method. "How do you picture Victor's appearance will look once he realizes the sequence of events?" Greg asked, struggling to hide his delight regarding the prospect. "I am particularly worried for my team," I admitted. "They should not suffer the repercussions." Greg confirmed. "This is already handled. We have vacancies for the entire 6 professionals if they are interested. Higher positions with significant compensation boosts." I signed the final sheet and protected the file. With a single clever move, I had secured my prospects, protected my team, and received credit for my work. "To new beginnings," Greg declared, raising his drink. "And to commanding your intellectual value," I added, clinking my glass against his. Thursday and Friday moved swiftly in a rush of departure meetings, knowledge handover sessions, and goodbyes to colleagues. I maintained my composed manner constantly, even as rumors spread throughout the corporation. Office workers gave me sympathetic glances in the hallways. Younger developers awkwardly came up, inquiring if I would give job platform recommendations prior to my departure. I logged all details meticulously, every strategy, every security number, every operation, realizing fully that Tech Vantage would soon discover precisely how thorough they needed me to be. My decision to deliver detailed handover paperwork was not kindness. It represented evidence that I had operated with true conviction, whereas the company had not. During my final separation conversation on Friday late afternoon, Denise from Human Resources progressed through the standard list with practiced precision. "You understand that all proprietary assets developed while you were employed remain the property of Tech Vantage," she announced, pushing a non-disclosure agreement toward me. "Of course," I replied willingly. "Everything developed within the scope of my job using company assets during company hours." I emphasized those exact points slightly, but Denise was too focused on ticking boxes to notice. "And you certify you hold no copies of sensitive corporate data?" "I have taken nothing that is owned by Tech Vantage," I stated truthfully. The intellectual property was mine anyway. While gathering the private possessions from my area, family portraits, a set of conference identification badges signifying 15 years of industry events, the coffee cup my team gifted me the preceding December, Marjorie arrived, leaning against my doorway with feigned ease. "I merely wished to confirm that all preparations for your departure are clear," she said, watching me place items into a carton. "Completely clear," I answered, shielding a small award I had received for the exact system that now formed the core of my strategy. The significance of the moment was not lost on me as I gently placed it among cushioning paper. "You realize, Kira, these restructuring decisions are never personal," Marjorie continued. "Victor feels the corporation needs to move forward with a focus on younger talents." I lifted my gaze, meeting her eyes directly. I completely grasped that. Business is business. Something about how I spoke caused her pause. For a fleeting moment, uncertainty flickered over her face, but she quickly dismissed it. What could an almost jobless female expert of 55 potentially achieve? "Will you be taking some time away?" she asked, a fabricated note of concern in her voice. In fact, I already have plans set up, I replied. I start Monday. Oh, astonishment registered on her expression. That seems fast. Anything important? I conveyed pleasure, very much so. A leadership position. I am extremely excited for it. She nodded distractedly, already mentally moving to other matters. Well, good luck concerning that. As I walked away from Tech Vantage's glass building for the final instance, security pass handed over and personal items carried, I stopped briefly to look back at the establishment where I had spent 15 years of my career. On the highest floor, I could see the executive conference room lit up for a nighttime gathering, likely debating how to reassign my responsibilities among staff who were younger, less experienced, and considerably cheaper. They had little inkling that in fewer than 3 days, that precise location would instead be hosting an emergency crisis discussion. Monday's dawn appeared bright and clear. I intentionally put on my new charcoal gray suit, a powerful outfit I had bought specifically for this event. The Precision Systems vehicle arrived precisely at 7:30 a.m. to drive me to their main office, where I would begin my first day as the Chief Innovation Executive. The formal press release became active at 7 a.m., Greg informed me as I settled into my new corner desk area with large floor-to-ceiling glass panes. Industry news sources are already covering the story. I have directed the publicity team to track feedback. The statement had been designed with intentional accuracy. Precision Systems secures sole rights to revolutionary data handling system. It welcomes creator Dr. Kira Jennings as Chief Innovation Executive. It detailed my experience, emphasized my position as the sole originator of the protected system, and explained how Precision Systems intended to incorporate the method into its forthcoming series of products. Crucially, it clearly stated that any corporation presently employing the system would need to set up licensing agreements with Precision Systems moving forward at precisely 9:15 a.m. My cell phone lit up with the first message from my former team at Tech Vantage. Complete chaos happening. What exactly did you do? It was sent by Miguel, who was my main software coder. I felt satisfied, texting back. Check your private email account. All 6 members have job offers awaiting. Concurrently, 8 miles away at Tech Vantage's main office, the scheduled Monday a.m. executive discussion was undergoing a major alteration. Based on Miguel's steady communication across the morning, Victor had arrived at the company to find the firm, his main general counsel and chief financial officer waiting by his doorway, both looking severely worried. The industry announcement had simultaneously hit their inboxes, causing instant alarms. By 9:30 a.m., what was supposed to be a normal start-of-week meeting had shifted into an emergency situation assembly. Directors were joining the call virtually. The legal division was frantically reviewing my work agreement and all files related to the system's development. They are pulling every piece of paper that includes your name, Miguel messaged. Somebody just delivered all the hardware from the R&D section for the engineering department to analyze. I could picture the scene perfectly, Victor pacing the conference room, demanding explanations from Marjorie and the law department. The firm's stock would already be reacting to the news. Investors did not tolerate uncertainty, and the announcement had created significant levels of it. At 10:45 a.m., I received an email directly from Victor. The desperation almost jumped off my screen. Kira, there appears to be a misunderstanding. Kindly call me at your earliest convenience so we can talk. I forwarded this communication to Precision Systems Law Department without responding. By noon, the business sector was buzzing with speculation. Tech Vantage's stock price had fallen 7% since trading opened, whereas Precision Systems had seen a rise of 12%. 3 distinct technology periodicals had requested interviews with me concerning the strategic feat that had disrupted the wealth management software segment. How are your emotions? Greg asked, showing up near my desk area while I got situated. Vindicated, I answered sincerely. A decade and a half of watching different people take credit for my input, of being told I ought to be grateful just to have a seat at the table, and finally, now, recognition. My newly appointed executive assistant appeared at the doorway. "Dr. Jennings, the development team is ready for you in the main conference facility." And she stopped. "Tech Vantage's CEO has phoned 4 times within the last 60 minutes. Kindly advise him I am unavailable in meetings all day." I answered calmly. "I will instruct our law team to make contact to examine licensing options later during this week." While I moved toward my very first meeting as the Chief Innovation Executive, my cell phone vibrated with yet another status report from Miguel. "Board of Directors just summoned an emergency meeting. Victor looks as if he is about to completely lose his composure. P.S. My team members and I are accepting your offer. When are we able to start?" By Tuesday's dawn, the full results of my departure had grown clear to all staff at Tech Vantage. Their core product, AccountSphere, relied entirely upon my system for managing the massive datasets which gave it superiority over marketplace competitors. Lacking legal authority for my patent, they faced 2 equally unpleasant choices: either negotiate with Precision Systems or rebuild their underlying system starting from scratch, an effort that would demand several years and expenditure of millions in development costs. Victor has called a company-wide assembly for 2 p.m. Miguel sent this. This was his last day employed at Tech Vantage. He, along with the rest of my former team, would be starting employment at Precision Systems the subsequent Monday. The rumor is that they are planning to try and launch a lawsuit against you. I sent his message to our legal team, who responded nearly immediately. Let them make the effort. Your documentation is perfect. Development diaries, private machinery, all clearly substantiate the circumstances. In the meantime, I was settling into my new responsibilities with considerable ease. The respect I received at Precision Systems represented a stark contrast compared to my final period at Tech Vantage. When I spoke during meetings, people actually listened. My ideas were not rebranded by male co-workers and presented as their own. My extensive experience and history were viewed as strengths instead of weaknesses. "The coders are implementing your performance upgrades," Greg informed me throughout our midday conversation. "Preliminary testing shows a 51% improvement in speed, even better than we had expected." "I possess several updates I never disclosed to Tech Vantage," I admitted. Once I found out they were planning to eliminate my position, I saw zero reason to offer them my greatest innovations. "Their loss, our gain," Greg replied with a delighted look. Speaking of which, the first licensing request came through earlier today. It wasn't from Tech Vantage yet. They are continuing in denial, but it originated from Dataflow Systems. They are anxious about becoming entangled in the dispute. At 3:30 p.m., Miguel sent a detailed summary of Victor's all-hands meeting. The CEO had tried to project confidence, assuring the staff that Tech Vantage would forcefully defend its proprietary invention. Yet the worry within the room was unmistakable. Numerous employees had already updated their job networking accounts. Sensing the corporation's vulnerability, Marjorie seemed close to fainting when an attendee asked specifically whether they had failed to secure the patent. Miguel reported Victor ended the question period shortly thereafter. By Wednesday, the market repercussions had intensified. 2 important clients had reached out to Precision Systems regarding switching away from AccountSphere, worried about Tech Vantage's ability to maintain the software without the method's originator. Our corporate stock had climbed an additional 8% while Tech Vantage's continued its decline. I received a call from Denise in HR, the exact woman who had pushed my termination package to me only days before. "Kira," she began, her tone intentionally businesslike. "I am calling to address the, situation regarding your intellectual property. We think there might have been a misunderstanding concerning ownership claims. I do not think any confusion exists," I answered serenely. "My work agreement clearly specifies that proprietary creations developed during my private hours using my own assets remain my property. The IP documentation confirms precisely that. Victor was hoping you might consider coming in to talk over solutions. All talks would need to go through Precision Systems Law Department at this point." I responded, "I am certain they would be pleased to schedule a meeting to review licensing requirements." The silence on her end conveyed deep implications. Finally, Denise sighed. I will pass that message along. That afternoon, I led my first formal presentation for Precision Systems Board of Directors, detailing our technical strategy with my system as its basis. As I stood confidently at the head of the conference room, rather than hidden in the back like I was at Tech Vantage, I caught sight of Greg's supportive movement. By Friday, merely 7 days after I walked away from Tech Vantage for the final time, the corporation had descended into a total state of emergency. Their stock valuation had plummeted by 23% since Monday's opening bell, triggering anxious calls from major investors. Industry commentators were publishing speculative articles with titles such as "Can Tech Vantage Survive the System Failure?" and how one strategic blunder might cost a tech company everything. Via my business contacts, I learned that Victor had eventually admitted the gravity of the situation to the directors. Tech Vantage would be forced to either license my system from Precision Systems, likely at exorbitant prices which would destroy their profit margins, or carry out a complete rebuilding of AccountSphere without implementing any technology covered by my exclusive right. They have started interviewing candidates for a new engineering unit. Miguel informed me during our Friday video chat where we talked about his imminent transfer to Precision Systems. Victor is claiming they are capable of reproducing the function in half a year. I could not prevent laughing. The original system needed me 36 months to complete, and that occurred with intimate familiarity of the problem area. Exactly. Miguel agreed. No one is believing that timeline, especially since your team submitted their resignation notices simultaneously. The loss of institutional knowledge is immense. Later that day, Tech Vantage attorneys finally called Precision Systems to start negotiations concerning potential licensing agreements. Our law team, sticking to the strategy we had developed, answered with terms that were legally sound yet intentionally punitive. Triple the customary industry licensing fee, alongside an open acknowledgement of my part as the technology's inventor. They will object to the credit more than the cost, Greg predicted while we reviewed the response in his office. Victor's massive ego will not let him admit he fired the expert who invented their core platform. In that case, they must reconstruct, I replied. And each day they spend trying to imitate my work is an additional 24 hours we solidify our leading position in the marketplace. The following Monday morning, 10 days after my disrespectful firing, I held the first meeting with my newly formed innovation department, which included Miguel and the remaining 5 engineers previously at Tech Vantage. The mood in the room felt vibrant as we planned the next phase of development for my system. This is precisely how design meetings ought to operate, commented Anita, one of my former team members. At Tech Vantage, we dedicated 50% of our time explaining basic ideas to executive personnel who still refuse to listen. That represents the difference between feeling valued and being viewed as replaceable, I commented. In this place, your expertise is recognized. Just as we finished the successful discussion, my assistant appeared at the door. Dr. Jennings, there has been a major development regarding Tech Vantage. Their board just announced an emergency change in leadership. Victor Lawson is stepping down immediately. This news traveled quickly within just a few hours. Industry newsletters were reporting that Tech Vantage's directors had lost confidence in Victor's authority following the IP error that jeopardized the company's main source of revenue. Marjorie Thompson was also let go along with the head of the legal department who had failed to properly secure the intellectual property. That night, I received a surprising email from Richard Donovan, Tech Vantage's newly appointed interim chief executive. Unlike Victor's desperate contact from the week before, this one seemed straightforward and courteous. Dr. Jennings, congratulations regarding your new position. I have been brought in to help Tech Vantage handle the current difficulties. I would like to talk about a fair licensing structure for your protected innovation. We are willing to acknowledge your accomplishments openly and make fitting amends for the mistakes made by the prior administration. Will you be available to meet during the next week? I forwarded the email to Greg, adding a short comment. First objective achieved. His answer came instantly. Superbly executed. Here's to celebrating your first major triumph for Precision Systems. It seems Tech Vantage is ultimately learning an expensive lesson regarding valuing originality and inventors. 90 days following my departure from Tech Vantage, I stood on the stage at the National Technology Innovation Convention, getting ready to deliver the keynote speech. The audience was filled with industry leaders, tech journalists, and eager software developers, many of whom were now familiar with my entire story. And now I am delighted to introduce our featured speaker, the event host announced. Dr. Kira Jennings, the Chief Innovation Executive at Precision Systems and originator of the distributed processing method, which has fundamentally altered data administration throughout various industries. The applause was substantial as I walked toward the podium. What a dramatic difference a short time span could create. Last year, I had been present at this same convention as part of the Tech Vantage delegation, situated toward the back, while Victor delivered a presentation regarding his company's breakthroughs. Gratitude. I began by scanning the attentive faces. Currently, I wish to discuss ownership of invention and the importance of properly valuing mental contributions regardless of their source. My address detailed the engineering specifics of my system, but also touched upon the broader themes of recognition and respect within the technological field. Without naming Tech Vantage specifically, I stressed the necessity for firms to protect their inventors instead of viewing them as interchangeable assets. Later, throughout the reception event, several younger women engineers came up to me seeking advice and coaching. One of them, barely 30 years old, mentioned, "Your story altered the way I document my work. I started keeping thorough records of my invention process while on my own time." "Clever," I replied. "Your intellectual property deserves protection." As the night concluded, I checked my portable phone to discover a business news alert. Tech Vantage had finally announced a licensing deal with Precision Systems, identifying me by name as the method's inventor. Their stock price had leveled off, though at a considerably lower value than it held prior to my departure. 12 months exactly after being instructed to clear out my area, I sat in my spacious office at Precision Systems, reviewing the quarterly progress report. Under my direction, the firm had released 3 game-changing services built utilizing my approach, gaining significant market share from Tech Vantage and other competing companies. A knock at my door stopped my reading. It was Greg holding a bottle of bubbly wine and 2 glasses. "Happy anniversary," he said, placing the drinking vessels on my desk surface. "The executives asked me to share the news with you personally ahead of the official announcement. Precision Systems has officially surpassed Tech Vantage in market capitalization for the first time in the company's existence." I showed satisfaction, feeling not triumph, but a quiet feeling of fulfillment. That is precisely what happens when you respect creativity correctly. While Greg poured the champagne, my assistant carried in an elegant box. Inside was a request to speak at the Women in Technology Yearly Executive Summit. The topic? Managing your professional value. How maintaining diligent documentation changed an entire industry. "You have become somewhat of a legend, you realize?" Greg noted, looking at the card. "The account concerning the seasoned professional who failed to realize her value until it was taken away has turned into a cautionary lesson in corporate boardrooms." Richard Donovan, who had remained as Tech Vantage's CEO following the crisis, had implemented sweeping reforms in how the company recognized and rewarded creativity. Their updated policies concerning intellectual asset protection and inventor recognition were reportedly modeled after the system I had instituted at Precision Systems. "The goal was never revenge," I asserted, raising my glass in a toast. "It centered on getting credit, on proving to the industry that originality is not faceless. It springs from real people who deserve proper appreciation." "To suitable recognition," Greg agreed, clinking his glass against mine. While the afternoon light shone across my office's clear panels, I reflected on my journey. Aged 56, I had finally found what eluded me across my entire career. Not simply success, but validation. My name was now eternally linked to the system that had reformed an industry, residing precisely where it should.